Hello guys! In this video, I will be explaining everything you need to know about auto one-shot setups for Wyvern 13 Hunt. I will be showing you the best setup to date and give you alternatives and other ideas. Before we start, you should know that Wyvern 13 is considered the best place to farm for endgame gear for most players. Some people will argue that Rift is better for gear farming, and that is true if you can auto one-shot that as well. But even then, in my opinion, and as a free-to-play, I believe that Wyvern 13 remains top, because you can farm the most expensive currency in the game from it, which is Skystones and Mystic Metals. So it all comes down to your priorities. I personally farm Hunts 13 during event days and Rift during regular days, especially if I'm chasing a specific gear set like Penetration or Torrent. First of all, I will show you the best auto one-shot team to date, and how to approach and build each one of the units I use, and also give you an idea on how to replace them if needed. You need to know that there is an in-game mechanic called 15% resistance, and that is something players cannot remove unless they use soul burns, or use some heroes with specific conditions or passives that ignore that resistance, such as Fireken's skill 2 when he is on Vigor mode. Also worth mentioning that for every Hunt 13, the effectiveness needed on a debuffer to 100% land his debuff on a boss is 65%. So in practice, you actually have 85% chance to land a debuff on a boss if you consider the in-game resistance we talked about. Now the reason why I'm talking about effectiveness and debuffs is, in order to auto one-shot Wyvern 13 efficiently, you need to land defense break for your DPS to do the maximum damage possible. Onto the team building for our setup, you basically need to cover 4 roles to successfully one-shot Wyvern 13. First and hardest role is the AoE DPS, and that is the hero responsible for clearing the first wave of the hunt. In my opinion, if you have the gear for that hero, anyone can one-shot Wyvern 13. We also have the single target DPS, and that is the hero responsible for doing the most amount of damage to the Wyvern in one turn in the second wave. This one, in my opinion, is super easy, because not only the game gives you the best 5-star ice element DPS for free, but also gives you a free rage set to use on it as well. So pairing Sigrid with that set will do the job mostly. Next we have the support role, and this one is basically the hero that provides attack buff and something else, like dual attacking, speed buff, or even damage buff in general. We mostly use this support to also tank the Wyvern hits on second wave, so the other members of the team get to do their part in that very first turn. For the final role, we have the debuffer, and this is the defense break part I was talking about earlier. This one is simple but tricky, because you need a hero that can defense break, but also provide something else for the whole run. Now that I've explained to you the roles, let's talk about the Wyvern's mechanics as well. Wyvern Hunt has 2 waves. First one contains 3 minions, which only requires a DPS check to cleave them in the first turn. Next we have the Wyvern itself, which requires some strategy. The Wyvern will always attack frontline hero if he go first, so that's a good thing that you can use against him. The Wyvern has 243 speed, so you can outspeed him, but his attack after will hit a random hero instead of the front line, so that's why it's best to build a team around going after he attacks and not before. Another thing worth mentioning is, Wyvern attacks 3 times in one act, and each attack will dispel 1 buff and push your hero's combat readiness. So speed tune and turn order is very important. By the way, if you are able to land 2 debuffs on Wyvern, he will always attack the front line after his first turn, and this is very helpful in none one-shot setups. Also, if you are able to land 3 debuffs on him, that will reduce his attack so he'll do less damage to your tank. Alright, now let's look into our options and how to build a team to one-shot this hunt. As you can see, currently one of the best teams to date is Seaside Bologna, which is the AoE DPS that will take care of the first wave. Next is Sinful Angelica, which is the main support here because she provides AoE attack and speed buff and immortality to herself, so she can tank the Wyvern and also dual attack with the highest attacker in your team. We also have Karen as our main debuffer and sub DPS, because her second skill allow her to defense break and gain extra turn to deal some damage herself, to reduce the health bar even further for an easier time for your main DPS. And finally, we have Rem, which is the main damage dealer here because her passive and skill works best. Rem's passive triggers her demon mode when someone on the field dies, and during that mode, she can attack twice every time when she uses her first skill and have a chance to defense break herself in case the Wyvern resists Karen. Now, let me explain to you the speed order and the stats you need for every unit. For our Seaside Bologna, and this is without counting artifacts and imprints, you need around 4.2k attack and 340% critical damage, and you also need her around 180 speed. Any effectiveness on her will be insanely helpful, because both her first and second skills have chance to debuff the Wyvern. Keep in mind that you can reduce the damage stats for Seaside Bologna, but you will have to sacrifice the Joker artifact, which deals the highest amount of damage to PvE bosses in general, so you can use Bologna's artifact or any other AoE damage artifact if you have hard time clearing first wave. As for her exclusive equipment, it's best to use the increased damage for her second skill. Another thing worth mentioning is her crit chance, as you can only run her with 70%, and that's because of two major things: element advantage, which gives 15% extra since the Wyvern is fire element, and Karen's imprint, which gives 15% crit chance to two allies in the back. Which brings us to Karen. The most important stats for her are 65% effectiveness and 160 speed for the turn order as well. Everything else should go to attack and critical damage. Running her on Joker Artifact will allow you to clear Wyvern even faster. For her exclusive equipment, use the Bleed Effect one, since it will help stack debuffs on Wyvern, and he'll continue attacking your front line for his next turn as well. It's also good if you are using Sigrid as main DPS, since her third skill ignores defense, based on how many debuffs the Wyvern has. Now let's talk about our main DPS Rem. This one is straightforward. All you need is full attack and critical damage with 70% critical chance while using Rage or Destruction set for maximum damage potential. She don't need effectiveness because her defense break ignores resistance when she enters demon mode. Another important thing is having her between 120 up to 130 speed so she can manage to get a turn before Wyvern's next act. For our final member of the team, Sinful Angelica, and she requires two major stats to do her job, you need her with 200% effect resistance so the Wyvern can't strip her immortality buff, and 190 speed, because after she uses her third skill on the first wave, that speed buff is the key for your team members to act in a specific order. If you have those stats covered, throw everything else on her effectiveness because she have a chance to debuff with her first skill as well. And for her exclusive equipment, you can use whatever you like, but I prefer the effectiveness buff. Her artifact is also free to choose based on your needs. For example, you can use artifacts that boost your team's attack, effectiveness, or crit chance. Her team imprint is also very helpful because it will reduce gear score requirements for your AoE DPS, so it's best to have her at max imprint. Before I show you how this setup works, let me give you some replacement for each hero on the team, but keep in mind, some heroes will require higher investment to do the same job. Seaside Bologna can be replaced with Clarissa, but will need higher gear score. Sinful Angelica can be replaced with a tanky Vivian, which I have done before. Karen can be replaced with Fire Ken. Rem can be replaced with Sigrid. With all that out of the way, let me show you how this run goes and how the turn order is perfect to auto one-shot Wyvern 13 as fast as possible. As always, thank you for watching. If you find this guide helpful, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe for daily Epic 7 content.